Tears rolled down Victoria's cheeks as she screamed. Her fingers trembled as she looked at the baby boy lying in the crib. Not because he wasn't beautiful. But because he looked nothing like the man who paid her to carry him. The baby had the same almond-shaped eyes as she did, the same caramel skin, even the same tiny mole under his left eye, just like her late brother. But none of this made sense, because according to every test, she was never supposed to be the mother. He was Ethan Grayson, billionaire tech tycoon, cold, rich, and utterly untouchable. The baby was supposed to be his sperm, an anonymous egg donor. Victoria was just the surrogate. The contract was clear. She'd carry the baby, get paid, and walk away. But now the baby was hers. She had no idea how it happened. And worse, Ethan had just walked in. He was staring at the baby. His eyes slowly moved from the crib to her. And then, in a voice colder than winter, he said, "Explain this." Now, 3 years earlier, Victoria James was living in a rundown shelter in Brooklyn. She had nothing left. No parents, no job, no place to call home. Her life was a slow drip of gray days and empty nights. She'd once dreamed of being a nurse, someone who made people feel safe, like her mom used to. But after her mother died of cancer and the medical bills crushed them, Victoria had to drop out of school and start cleaning houses just to survive. That didn't last. Nothing did. One December morning, she sat on the steps outside the shelter's entrance, watching the cars pass, wondering if her life would ever mean anything. That's when her name was called. Victoria James? She turned. A tall man in a gray suit stood there, holding a folder. His haircut was too perfect, like it cost more than she made in a month. "I'm from the Grayson Foundation," he said. "I need 5 minutes of your time." She almost laughed. Grayson Foundation? That name was everywhere in New York. They funded hospitals, built schools, and were owned by Ethan Grayson, one of the richest and most ruthless men in the country. The man handed her the folder. She opened it. Her eyes widened. "Is this a joke?" she asked. "No, Miss James," he said. "This is very real. Mr. Grayson is looking for a surrogate. You meet the criteria. You've passed the medical scans. And we're prepared to compensate you generously." "How much?" she whispered. $3 million. She almost dropped the folder. She looked up at him, her voice cracking. "Why me?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Because Mr. Grayson believes in second chances." That was a lie. She didn't know it then. But Ethan didn't believe in second chances. He believed in control. She was brought into a fancy clinic in Manhattan the next day. Everything was white, clean, and cold. She underwent more tests, signed thick papers with words she barely understood, and met a lawyer who didn't smile once. She didn't meet Ethan, not even once. They called it a gestational surrogacy. That meant the egg wasn't hers. The baby wouldn't be hers. Just her womb. 9 months of her life, and then a new start. It was simple, until it wasn't. The pregnancy was rough. Morning sickness that lasted all day. Strange cravings. Migraines. But the clinic took care of her. She was placed in a private apartment uptown, given a driver, had nurses check on her every 2 days. But by the 6th month, things started feeling off. She noticed bruises on her stomach that didn't make sense. Sharp pains that nurses said were normal, but her gut said otherwise. She started keeping a diary, writing down every strange thing she felt. And then one night, she woke up crying. Not from pain, from a dream. In the dream, her baby was calling her mama. That wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to be the mother. The night before she went into labor, she did something she was never supposed to do. She sneaked into the clinic after hours. She wanted to read her file. Something didn't sit right. She found her name in the donor log. Not as a surrogate, as the egg donor. The whole world spun around her. It meant the baby wasn't just in her. It was hers, fully. And now, she couldn't walk away. When the baby was born, she knew the truth before the first cry. The baby had her nose, her eyes, her skin. She knew Ethan would find out. She knew he would be furious. But she had no idea what he would do. And now, in the hospital room, with the truth staring them in the face, Ethan's voice cut through the silence. "Explain this." Now, she looked at him. Her voice shook. I think I think they used my egg, not the donors. I think it's my baby. He didn't blink. And then, without warning, he walked forward, yanked the hospital file from the wall, and started flipping pages. His face changed. His lips tightened. Then, he slammed the folder shut. I want a DNA test. Today. Victoria clutched the baby. You don't need a test. Just look at him. Ethan stared at her. What game are you playing? He asked. Do you think this is going to change anything? I didn't plan this, she said. I didn't even know. I swear. He didn't answer. He just stood there, silent, thinking, and then the door burst open. A nurse rushed in, face pale. Mr. Grayson, we have a problem. What now? He barked. She swallowed. The second baby, he's gone. Victoria froze. Second? She whispered. There was a second baby? She only remembered holding one. The nurse nodded, panicked. There was a twin. He was in the NICU. But he's missing. Someone took him. Ethan's face turned to stone. Victoria's breath caught in her throat. Who would take a baby? She whispered. The nurse trembled. Security says it was your driver. Victoria's knees buckled. She had no idea what was happening anymore. And that's when the screaming started in the hallway. The hallway outside the hospital room exploded into chaos. Voices shouted over one another. The nurse darted out, leaving the door swinging. Victoria clutched the baby tighter, her heart racing like thunder in her chest. Ethan was already moving. Stay here, he barked, heading for the door. But Victoria wasn't going to stay. Not when someone had taken her child, her other child. She stumbled after him, still in her hospital gown, her legs trembling. Her body screamed for rest. But her mind was locked on one thing, a second baby. How had she not known there were two? How had no one told her? The hallway was packed. Nurses, security, even a doctor or two all surrounded the NICU door. A security guard was shouting into his radio. Lock all exits. Code pink. I repeat, code pink. Infant abduction in progress. Ethan's voice boomed above the noise. Where's my driver? Where the hell is Gerald? The head nurse looked like she was about to cry. He showed a hospital badge. Said he was picking up the newborn. Security let him in. Victoria felt her knees wobble again. The nurse caught her elbow. You need to lie down, Miss James. No, Victoria rasped. No, I need to find my baby. Ethan was already on his phone, barking orders. Send a helicopter to St. Luke's rooftop. He might still be nearby. I want traffic cams. Plate numbers. I don't care what it takes. Find that car. Victoria grabbed his arm. Why didn't you tell me there were twins? He didn't answer. Why didn't you tell me? She cried. His jaw clenched. Because I didn't know. What? Ethan looked her dead in the eye. The embryo transfer was for one. Just one. They never told me about two. Then someone lied to both of us. That shut him up. Minutes felt like hours. Police arrived. Ethan's private security team swept the hospital. Helicopters took to the sky. And Victoria, still bleeding, still sore, was wheeled into a private recovery room. She held her remaining son against her chest, her body shaking. His name was Noah. She decided that just now. She didn't know what the other baby's name would have been. Noah's breathing was soft. He didn't know he had a twin. Didn't know that somewhere out there, another little boy was gone. She whispered to him, I'll find your brother. I swear to God I will. 4 days earlier, Victoria sat on the edge of her hospital bed in the private maternity suite. She was overdue. The baby was taking his sweet time. She'd been reading books about childbirth, even though the plan was simple. A C-section, no questions, the baby taken straight to Ethan's people, and then a quiet exit from her life. But lately, she'd been having dreams. The same one, over and over. A little boy with curls like hers, running through a field, laughing, calling her mama. She told herself it didn't mean anything. She told herself this wasn't her baby. But deep down, something inside her disagreed. The morning of the surgery, a nurse came in to prep her. The usual blood pressure check for setup, fetal monitoring. Except this nurse looked unfamiliar. She wore the same scrubs, moved like a professional. But Victoria had gotten to know most of the staff. This woman wasn't one of them. What's your name? Victoria asked, eyeing her badge. The woman smiled, a little too wide. Maria, just covering the morning shift. Victoria's gut tensed. You knew. Maria shrugged. "You're almost done, sweetheart. You'll never have to see us again." Something about those words chilled her. After she left, Victoria hit the emergency call button. When the head nurse entered, Victoria asked about Maria. "We don't have anyone named Maria on rotation today." That's when everything changed. The C-section was moved up. Security was posted outside her door, but it was already too late. Because whoever Maria was, she'd done something, and no one had figured out what. Now, back in the present, Ethan Grayson stood in a dark conference room high above Manhattan. The hospital had failed him. The foundation had failed him. He stared at the CCTV stills. A woman in scrubs, masked, dark hair, carrying a newborn wrapped in a blue blanket. She walked right past the front desk, slipped into a black SUV, and vanished. No license plate, no trace. His driver, Gerald, had been working for him for 8 years. Loyal, clean record, gone. He slammed his fist on the table. Whoever did this, they planned it for months. The head of security nodded. "Looks like an inside job. And it goes beyond just the baby." Ethan turned. "What do you mean?" The man hesitated. "We did a sweep of the clinic. Records were wiped. The fertilization logs altered. All signs point to someone switching the donor egg." Ethan's pulse jumped. "So she wasn't lying?" "Looks that way." That meant the boy, Noah, was her biological child, and possibly his, or someone else's. Ethan stared out the window. He didn't like loose ends. He didn't like not knowing. And he sure as hell didn't like someone stealing what was his. Victoria didn't sleep that night. She just stared at Noah, her heart aching. The hospital placed an armed guard outside her door. Cameras monitored every inch of the floor. Ethan's people offered to move her to a secure mansion upstate. She refused. "I'm not leaving until I get him back." "Miss James," the hospital administrator said, "you're not safe here." "I don't care." That evening, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a single photo. A baby, her baby, swaddled in a strange blue blanket. And a note. "You gave life to something more powerful than you know. Keep quiet, or lose the other one too." Victoria screamed. Ethan was there within minutes. He read the note, jaw tightening. "Someone's playing with fire," he muttered. She grabbed his arm. "I want to help." He shook his head. "You just had surgery. You're not trained for this." Her voice hardened. "He's my son." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. And for the first time, she saw something shift in his eyes. Not cold, not calculating, just pain. "Then we do this together," he said. They were halfway through planning their next step when Ethan's phone buzzed. A single message. He read it, went pale. Victoria leaned forward. "What is it?" He turned the phone toward her. It was a live video feed of her second baby, sleeping in a crib, and standing behind the crib was someone Ethan knew very well, his younger brother, someone he hadn't spoken to in 7 years. "Hello, Ethan," the message said. "Ready to finish what we started?" The room fell silent. Ethan's hand clenched the phone so tightly it looked like it might snap in half. Victoria reached out, her fingers brushing his wrist. "Who is that?" she whispered. He didn't answer right away, just stared at the screen. The video played on a loop. Her second baby, asleep in a darkened room, while a man in a gray hoodie stood beside the crib, arms crossed. The man's face wasn't fully visible, but Ethan knew. "His name is Caleb," Ethan said finally. His voice was tight. "Lo, my brother." Victoria blinked. "You have a brother?" "Had," Ethan muttered, "until he disappeared 7 years ago." "What happened?" Ethan's eyes were still glued to the screen. "He stole something from me, something important, and then he vanished." Victoria swallowed hard. "You think he took the baby?" Ethan slowly nodded. "It's him. It's his handwriting in the note. In that room." He zoomed in on the wall in the video. Victoria could barely make it out, but there was a crack running diagonally across faded green paint. "That's the basement of our old house in Connecticut," Ethan said. "The one our parents left us. I haven't been there in years. I thought it was abandoned." Victoria stared at him. "Why would he do this? What does he want?" Ethan looked down at the note again. "You gave life to something more powerful than you know." He didn't answer her question. Instead, he stood up, already pulling on his coat. "We're leaving. Now." "Where?" "To the old house. We're getting him back." The road to Connecticut was long and silent. Ethan drove himself, refused security, backup, even police. Victoria, still sore from surgery, sat in the passenger seat, bundled in a hospital blanket. Noah slept in a carrier behind them, guarded by a private nanny and one armed guard Ethan reluctantly agreed to bring. She glanced at him. "Tell me about Caleb." Ethan's jaw tightened. "We were close once," he said, "until he started gambling. Lying. He lost everything: money, jobs, friends. I bailed him out more times than I can count. Then one day, he tried to sell our company's prototype to a rival firm. Said I owed him. What happened? I stopped him, pressed charges. But before the trial, he disappeared. And you haven't seen him since?" "No, not a word. Until now." Victoria felt her stomach twist. "Why now?" Ethan didn't answer. They drove in silence the rest of the way. The house loomed in the darkness like a shadow from the past. Old and gray, with boarded windows and vines crawling up the porch. Ethan parked down the road and cut the lights. They got out, leaving the nanny and guard behind with Noah. Victoria wrapped her coat tighter around herself. "Wait," she said, grabbing Ethan's arm. "What if it's a trap?" He looked at her. "It is a trap. That doesn't mean we're not walking into it." He pulled a small handgun from his coat and checked the chamber. Victoria's eyes widened. "You carry a gun?" "Not usually," he said. "But for Caleb, I make exceptions." They moved through the trees quietly. The wind whispered through the branches like voices. The house creaked as if it were breathing. Ethan led her around to the back. The cellar door was unlocked, wide open. Inside, everything was cold and damp. They stepped into the basement. The crib was there, empty. Victoria rushed forward. No, 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 he was here. He was right here." And then a voice echoed from the shadows. "Looking for someone?" They turned. Caleb stood at the far end of the room, holding the baby in his arms. Victoria froze. "Please," she whispered, "give him to me." Caleb stepped into the light. He looked like Ethan, but thinner, wilder. His eyes were sunken, but burning. "I should thank you," he said. "Both of you. This little miracle. He's perfect." Ethan raised the gun. "Put him down. Now." Caleb didn't flinch. He rocked the baby gently. "Do you even know what you've created?" he asked. Ethan's voice hardened. "You're sick." Caleb smiled. "No, I'm awake. And you're still blind. Put him down." "You don't get it, do you?" Caleb stepped closer. "That embryo, it was never yours. It was mine. I designed it. Genetically. Back when I was still at the lab. Before you stole everything from me." Victoria stared, her heart thudding. "What are you talking about?" Caleb looked at her, eyes glowing with something dark. The egg was switched. The sperm wasn't just Ethan's. It was enhanced, spliced. My DNA. I created them both. She felt like the ground had dropped out from beneath her. "That's impossible." "Is it?" he said softly. "You think it was an accident that you were chosen? You passed every test for a reason. You were meant to carry them." Ethan stepped forward. "You're lying." Caleb laughed. "Am I?" Then he held up a small vial from his pocket. A bright blue liquid shimmered inside. "I gave him a gift," he whispered. "A future no one else will have." Victoria's scream split the air. "What did you do to my baby?" But before anyone could move, the lights exploded. A flash of white, then darkness, then a gunshot. The echo of the gunshot rang through the cold basement like thunder. Dust rained from the ceiling. Victoria screamed and dropped to the ground, her arms instinctively wrapping around her head. "Ethan!" she cried out, heart racing. Darkness swallowed everything. The single, bare light bulb above them had burst, leaving only the faint gray light leaking through the cellar door behind them. Silence. Then the sound of footsteps running. Victoria scrambled to her feet, dizzy, heart hammering. "Ethan," she called again, panic rising in her throat. "I'm here," came his voice, tight, hoarse, but alive. "I'm okay." She turned toward the sound. A few feet away, he was kneeling on the ground, the gun in his hand still smoking. "Where is he?" she gasped. Ethan pointed toward the open side of the basement, where an old service tunnel connected to the rear of the house. He ran, took the baby. "No," she yelled and sprinted past Ethan, ignoring the pain still gripping her abdomen. She hit the side of the wall hard as she turned the corner, scraping her shoulder, but she didn't stop. The tunnel was long, musty, and pitch black. Somewhere ahead, she heard the sound of shoes slapping concrete and a soft cry. Her baby. "Wait," she screamed, tears now streaming freely down her cheeks. "Please stop. Don't hurt him." No response. Behind her, Ethan shouted, "Victoria, don't go alone." But she didn't listen. All she could think about was her baby, the way he had looked in Caleb's arms. Peaceful, unaware that he had just become the center of something bigger than all of them. Then a new sound cut through the air, a squeal of tires. Victoria burst out of the tunnel exit and onto an overgrown gravel path behind the house, just in time to see the back of a black SUV disappearing into the trees. She collapsed to her knees. Too late. Ethan ran up behind her moments later. He didn't say anything at first, just stood over her, breathing hard, his face pale in the moonlight. "They're gone," she said numbly. "I know." He crouched beside her. "But not forever. He can't run far." She looked at him, shaking her head. "You don't understand. He's done something to him. To our baby." Ethan's jaw clenched. "I know." Back at the house, the armed guard met them halfway, gun drawn, eyes wide. "What happened?" "We heard a shot." Ethan cut him off. "He's gone. Get the surveillance drone in the air now. And pull every traffic feed within 10 miles. "Yes, sir." The guard ran back to the car. The nanny was still in the back seat, rocking Noah gently. He was crying, sensing the panic and fear swirling in the air. Victoria slid into the back beside him, pressing her forehead to his. "It's okay, baby," she whispered. "I've got you. I've got you." But her heart said otherwise. Ethan stood by the car, hands on his hips, staring at the dark trees beyond. He wasn't just thinking about Caleb. He was thinking about the lab. The one Caleb had worked at all those years ago. They'd been working on advanced genetic modeling, gene splicing, embryo enhancement. Caleb had been the lead researcher until he spiraled. Or so everyone thought. Had he kept working in secret? Had he used company resources to create something more? And if he had, what had he done to the twins? The next morning, back in the city, Victoria sat in Ethan's penthouse, wrapped in a warm blanket with Noah sleeping in her arms. The skyline of Manhattan stretched behind her like a cold steel forest. The place was enormous, but it felt empty. No warmth, no laughter, just long, cold hallways and polished floors that reflected too much. Ethan entered quietly, setting a coffee beside her. "He's still off the grid," he said. "We traced the SUV to a warehouse in New Jersey, but by the time we got there, it was empty." Victoria nodded, but her eyes were on Noah. "What did he mean?" she asked softly. "When he said the embryo was never yours." Ethan sat on the opposite couch. Caleb worked on CRISPR tech, gene editing. He knew how to create a child with specific traits. Intelligence, strength, immunity to diseases. We talked about it years ago, just theoretical, but he must have gone further. She looked up. "You think he created them? On purpose? Maybe not both, but at least one." Victoria's voice cracked. "He said I was chosen, and I passed the tests. Do you think this was all planned?" Ethan didn't answer. That silence was answer enough. Her stomach turned. "So what now?" "He's out there with my son, and we don't even know what he's done to him." Ethan stood up, started pacing. "We'll find them. But there's more. I pulled the original fertilization records from an off-site backup." She turned to him. He continued. "The embryo that became Noah, it was you and me." Victoria froze. "Wait," she whispered. "You're saying you're his father?" Ethan nodded. "And so is the other one. They're both ours." She covered her mouth with her hand, tears rushing back to her eyes. For months, she told herself she was just the vessel, just the womb. But all along, she'd carried her children, their children, and one of them was gone. That evening, a manila envelope arrived at Ethan's building. No return address. Inside, a USB drive. They plugged it into Ethan's laptop. A video played. It showed Caleb in a warehouse, standing beside a strange machine with wires and blinking lights. Her baby, her second son, lay inside a clear chamber, sleeping peacefully, bathed in a soft blue light. Caleb spoke directly to the camera. "You always said I was dangerous. Ethan, he said. But what if I'm the only one who sees the future? He stepped aside and pointed to the child. He's the key, the first of his kind. Accelerated neural growth. Immunity to almost every known disease. Genetic evolution. And he's just the beginning. Victoria gasped. What is that machine? Ethan's hands tightened into fists. It's a bioenhancement pod. It uses gene stimulants to artificially speed up development. In a baby, Caleb's voice continued, as if answering her. Don't worry, Victoria, he said. You won't feel a thing. He'll be perfect. And soon, I'll be ready for you to meet him again. The screen went black. Then, a final message appeared in white text. 6 days. Beacon Tower. Come alone. Victoria stared at the screen, frozen. Ethan sat back, stunned. Beacon Tower? She asked. He nodded slowly. An abandoned high-rise they never finished. 30 stories. Full of dead elevators and broken windows. She looked at him. It's a trap. Yes, he said. And then, with a long breath, he looked her dead in the eyes. But it's one we have to walk into. The wind howled around the broken skeleton of Beacon Tower like a beast guarding its lair. 30 stories of glass and steel forgotten by the world, standing crooked against the gray New York sky. Rusted cranes and scaffolding clung to its sides like bones. Long since abandoned during a financial collapse, it had become a place of silence, shadows, and secrets. Victoria stood across the street, staring up at the tower's dark windows. The USB's message had been clear: come alone. She wasn't supposed to bring anyone, but she hadn't come alone. Ethan stood a block away, dressed in black, an earpiece tucked discreetly into his ear. A team of private operatives hid in nearby buildings, ready to move on his command. Surveillance drones circled the tower, silent and invisible in the clouds above. They couldn't risk losing another chance. Victoria touched the small microphone hidden in her collar. I'm going in. Ethan's voice came through the earpiece, low and steady. Keep your head down. No sudden moves. The second you see Caleb or the baby, say the code word. What's the word again? Redbird. She nodded. Copy that. Then she crossed the street. Her heart thundered in her chest. Every step felt heavier than the last. She'd barely slept in days. Every breath burned in her ribs. But none of it mattered. All that mattered was getting her son back. The front doors of Beacon Tower groaned open with a loud screech. She stepped inside. Dust danced in the sunlight, streaming through the broken glass. The lobby was empty except for scattered tools, abandoned wires, and a single note taped to a concrete pillar. Take the elevator to the 29th floor. Leave your phone. Bring nothing else. She swallowed hard. This is definitely a trap, she whispered under her breath. Ethan's voice crackled in her ear. Go. We got eyes on you. She stepped into the elevator shaft. The car itself was missing, just a rope ladder hanging where the lift used to be. A climb, of course. She gritted her teeth and started up. Every rung groaned. Her hands ached. Her knees shook. 29 floors, one after another. It felt like it took forever. When she reached the top, her arms gave out. She collapsed on the floor, panting, dust in her mouth. A voice echoed above her. Glad you made it. She looked up. Caleb stood in a wide-open room, stripped to its concrete bones. No windows, just wind. A long table stood in the middle, and on top of it, her baby, wrapped in the same blue blanket. He was awake, eyes wide, blinking slowly. A small band was around his ankle. Some kind of sensor. Victoria's breath caught. Give him to me. Caleb smiled, but there was nothing warm about it. He's doing well. Better than I expected. The modifications worked. His neural scans are off the charts. He's thinking at a level most toddlers won't reach for another 3 years. She stepped forward slowly. He's not a science project. He's a child. My child. Our child, Caleb said. Created by my design, your body, and Ethan's power. We all played a part. I didn't agree to play a part, she spat. You didn't have to. Your DNA was perfect. Strong immune history, no family disease, high emotional intelligence. You were meant for this. She was only a few feet away now, close enough to see her baby's chest rising and falling. He looked healthy, beautiful. Tears welled in her eyes. Please, Caleb, give it back. He tilted his head. He needs me. He needs to know who he is. What he is. Victoria glanced at the corner of the room. There was a small camera mounted on a pipe. She muttered under her breath, low and steady. Redbird. From her earpiece, silence. Then, copy. Breach in 60 seconds, Ethan's voice whispered. Caleb didn't hear her. He turned to the child, gently running a hand over the blanket. Do you know what we've done? We've broken the rules of biology. We've created evolution itself. You stole a baby, she said, trying to keep his attention. And you lied to me. You used my body without my consent. That doesn't make you a genius. That makes you a criminal. Caleb looked at her, eyes narrowing. Don't pretend like you're better than me, Victoria. You were willing to sell a child for money. She flinched. That hit deep. Too deep. Before she could respond, the floor below their feet shook. Boom. Dust dropped from the ceiling. What was that? Caleb spun around. Then, the windows exploded. Smoke bombs crashed through the far wall. Ethan's operatives flooded in. Black uniforms, gas masks, weapons drawn. Victoria didn't wait. She lunged forward, grabbing the baby just as Caleb tried to snatch him away. No, Caleb screamed. You don't understand. He needs me. Ethan ran in next, tackling Caleb to the ground. The two brothers wrestled, fists flying, old hatred pouring out in grunts and shouts. Victoria shielded the baby, holding him tight, her body curled around as like armor. A shot rang out, then silence. When she looked up, Caleb was on the ground, bleeding from the shoulder, groaning. Ethan stood over him, gun lowered, face expressionless. Victoria held her breath. Is he dead? She asked. Ethan shook his head. No, but he's done. He turned to her, his eyes scanning the baby's face. And for the first time, Victoria saw it. Not the cold billionaire. Not the businessman. Just a father. 2 hours later, Beacon Tower was crawling with law enforcement. Caleb was cuffed, sedated, and loaded into a secure van. The medical team checked the baby. Aside from minor dehydration and fatigue, he was fine. Normal even, but the scans would come later. Genetic tests, neurological assessments. Victoria wasn't sure she wanted to know what they'd find. Back in Ethan's penthouse, the sun finally rose, painting the sky orange. Victoria held both boys in her arms, Noah and the one she hadn't named yet. Ethan walked in slowly. He's safe now, he said. He'll never come near them again. She looked at him. What happens now? He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I don't know, but I want to figure it out. With you. Victoria met his eyes. For once, no secrets sat between them. No contracts. No lies. Just truth. But before she could answer, Noah began to cry. And beside him, the second baby's eyes opened. But they weren't normal. They were glowing faintly. The soft glow in the baby's eyes pulsed faintly, like the reflection of a candle in a mirror. Not bright, not menacing, just unnatural. Victoria froze. She blinked, leaned in closer. It was gone. The glow faded as quickly as it had come. The baby blinked sleepily, yawned, and squirmed against her chest like any other newborn. But she had seen it, and so had Ethan. They stared at each other, silently asking the same question neither of them wanted to say out loud. What is he? Victoria's breath hitched. That wasn't just a light, was it? Ethan shook his head slowly. No. She looked down again. Her son, still unnamed, was already drifting back to sleep, peaceful in her arms. But now she saw every twitch, every breath, through a different lens. Caleb had said he'd given the child a gift. He'd said the baby was the key. And now, what if it was true? The next morning, a pediatric neurologist from Switzerland arrived at the penthouse, flown in by Ethan's private jet. Dr. Eliza Myrov was a leading expert in accelerated cognitive development and genetic anomalies in infants. She examined both boys, Noah first. Healthy, she said. No signs of tampering. He's perfect. Then she turned to the other child. Hours passed. Victoria sat in the corner of the room, not daring to breathe. Ethan paced like a lion in a cage. Finally, Dr. Myrov removed her gloves and turned to them, her expression unreadable. He's not sick, she said softly, but he's not normal. Victoria's mouth went dry. What do you mean? Dr. Myrov sighed and gestured to the laptop displaying the results. His neural synapses are firing faster than any newborn I've ever recorded. His amygdala, the part of the brain that processes emotions, shows patterns closer to that of a 2-year-old. That's impossible, Ethan muttered. It should be, she replied. But it isn't. Someone altered him before implantation. He's been genetically programmed to adapt and grow at an enhanced rate. Victoria felt sick. He's a baby. How can he handle that? That's what worries me, the doctor said. The human brain grows gradually for a reason. It's like trying to run before you've learned to crawl. His body is still an infant's, but his mind may become something entirely different. She hesitated. Have either of you noticed anything unusual? Victoria swallowed. His eyes. Last night, they glowed. Dr. Myrov's eyebrows rose, but she didn't dismiss it. If he's producing unique neural energy, it's not out of the question. I want to run more tests. But carefully. No invasive procedures. No stress. Victoria nodded quickly. I want to stay with him. Always. The doctor agreed. But Ethan was already deep in thought. What happens if the government finds out about this? He asked. About him? Dr. Myrov frowned. They'd take him. Study him. Maybe worse. Victoria's heart squeezed. Then no one can find out. Ever. But it was too late. Because someone already had. 2 nights later, the penthouse was dark and still. The twins lay in their nursery, sleeping side by side. Victoria had finally drifted off on the sofa, too exhausted to fight the tide of sleep. Ethan stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, staring down at the city. The lights stretched to infinity. His mind, for once, wasn't on profits or mergers. It was on the 2 tiny souls sleeping in the next room. They were his sons, and somehow, they'd become his greatest risk. Then, a red light blinked on the corner of the security panel. Unusual movement detected. Ethan frowned and crossed the room. Penthouse entry breach. Impossible. The doors were sealed. The guards were downstairs. No one could have gotten in without clearance. Then the monitor flickered. A black and white feed showed a shadow moving silently through the hallway outside the nursery. Long coat, hooded, masked. Ethan didn't wait. He grabbed the pistol from the drawer in the side table and ran. Victoria awoke to a soft beep. The baby monitor. Her eyes fluttered open. Something wasn't right. Noah was crying, but faintly, like he'd been crying for a while. She sat up and looked toward the nursery. The door was cracked open. She rose carefully and moved toward it, bare feet silent on the floor. Inside the room, the night light glowed blue. The twins were still in their cribs. But someone else was there too. A figure stood by the window, tall, still, watching the boys sleep. Victoria froze. Her voice caught her throat. And then Ethan burst through the door behind her, gun raised. Freeze! The figure turned. Victoria gasped. It wasn't Caleb. It was a woman. She pulled back the hood and removed her mask. Long black hair, sharp eyes, calm face. I don't want to hurt them, she said softly. I came to warn you. Ethan didn't lower the gun. You have 5 seconds. I work for an organization that monitors genetic anomalies. We've been watching Caleb since he disappeared, and we know what he did to your child. Victoria stepped in front of the babies. Why are you here? The woman looked directly at her. Because he's not the only one. There are others. Like him. Modified. Hidden. Raised in secret. And your son. He's the most advanced one we've seen. Victoria's knees buckled. The woman continued. Her voice almost a whisper. They're coming for him. The others. The ones who want what's in his blood. Ethan slowly lowered the gun. How do we stop them? She handed him a small black envelope. Start with this. It's everything we know, but you'll need to move. Now, if they know where he is. Her eyes flicked toward the crib. They'll come. Soon. She turned to leave. Victoria reached for her arm. Wait. Who are you? The woman paused at the doorway. My name's Raven, she said, and I was born in a lab. Just like him. Then she vanished into the night. Ethan tore open the envelope. Inside were photos, surveillance shots, maps, and a list of names. Coordinates. And one blurry image of a child with glowing eyes. Not theirs. Another. Victoria clutched her sons to her chest, her voice cracking. Ethan, what's happening to our family? He looked down the photo, then up at her, and said, We're at the start of a war we didn't know existed. The storm rolled in fast. By morning, thunder cracked above Manhattan like the sky itself had split open. Rain fell in hard, cold sheets. The city blurred behind the windows of Ethan's armored SUV as it sped down the West Side Highway, flanked by two black escort vehicles. In the back seat, Victoria held both boys close, her arms aching from the weight of them, but she refused to let go. One on each side, Noah slept peacefully, curled against her. The other, still unnamed, stared wide-eyed out the window, blinking slowly like he was taking in every detail of the world for the first time. "Where are we going?" she asked Ethan, her voice tight with fear and exhaustion. Ethan didn't take his eyes off the road ahead. "Somewhere no one will find us. A secure house upstate, built during the Cold War. My father kept it off all records." She nodded, though her gut was still twisted. She looked down at the black envelope again, spread open on the seat beside her. Names, faces, places, all tied together by one terrifying phrase scribbled on the back in red ink. The Vanguard children. There were 5 names. Only one had a photo. Her baby, the others, no pictures. Just names. Locations last known. And coded notes. One had escaped from a private lab in northern Russia. Another disappeared from a South Korean hospital. One had been adopted by a high-ranking official in Washington, D.C. The last? Unknown. No record. Just a symbol. Omega. Victoria's mind raced. If this was true, if her son was one of 5, what did that mean for him? And what did the others want? Beside her, Ethan finally spoke. This woman, Raven. I remember her name. She was on a classified project years ago. Government-funded, off the books. Her team worked on selective gene evolution. Victoria turned to him. "So, she's like them? One of these children?" He nodded. "But older. Maybe the prototype. Maybe something worse." Victoria shuddered. "She said they're coming, but they want what's in his blood." Ethan's hands gripped the wheel tighter. "Which means we have a very small window before they find us." Then a voice crackled in through his earpiece. "Sir, you want to see this?" Turning on a live feed now. The console in the front of the SUV lit up. News footage. A scene in Paris. A science expo. And a child, 8 years old, standing motionless in the middle of a panicked crowd. His eyes were glowing. Not softly, not faintly. Bright gold. Like fire. He lifted his hand. The lights around him shattered. Glass exploded outward like a wave. The footage cut to black. Victoria covered her mouth. Ethan's face turned grim. "That's one of them." The driver spoke up. "Sir, we're being followed." Ethan turned. "How many?" 3 black sedans. Tinted windows. Staying 2 cars behind. Could be nothing, but it feels wrong. Ethan turned to Victoria. "Hold on to them. No matter what happens." She clutched both babies to her chest. "I won't let go." They didn't make it to the safe house. Just 20 miles outside the city, the SUVs were ambushed. It started with a flash, blinding white light that burst across the windshield like lightning. The escort vehicles swerved violently. One flipped onto its side. Then a second flash, this time from behind. The tires of their SUV shredded instantly, like something had sliced them from underneath. The vehicle spun out, crashing into a tree at the edge of the road. Victoria screamed, shielding the boys. The air was filled with the sound of crunching metal, screaming tires, and gunfire. Ethan was already pulling her door open. "Out, now!" She stumbled out, barefoot, clutching both boys as he dragged her toward the tree line. Men in black combat gear were pouring out of the other cars, fast and silent. No insignias, no flags, only one shared mark. On the shoulder of each uniform, a golden Omega symbol. Omega. One of them raised a strange-looking weapon. A pulse of blue energy shot out. It hit the ground near Ethan. The dirt exploded, sending both of them flying. Victoria landed hard, still wrapped around the twins. Pain shot up her side. She rolled, dizzy, and when she looked up, one of them was standing over her. His eyes weren't just glowing. They pulsed. "Give him to me," the figure said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "Which one?" she whispered. He pointed to the unnamed child. Victoria shook her head, tears streaking her dirt-covered face. "No, he's not yours. He's mine." The man reached forward, and then Ethan hit him from behind like a freight train. The two men crashed into the bushes, fists and limbs tangled. Ethan fought like a man possessed. No rhythm, no calculation, just raw rage. Victoria got up, clutching both boys, and ran. Behind her, more gunfire, more shouting. Ethan yelled her name, but she couldn't turn back. She ran blindly through the trees, feet bleeding, breath ragged. She didn't know where she was going, but something pulled her forward. The boy in her arms, his eyes opened, and they were glowing again. Only this time, so were hers. For a second, just 1 second, Victoria saw something flash before her vision. A memory that wasn't hers. A cold lab, a steel table, a cry in the dark, Caleb's voice, then silence. And then, like a dream evaporating, it was gone. She stumbled to her knees, gasping. What had just happened? Before she could understand it, a hand touched her shoulder. She turned, flinching. It was Raven. Her face was dirty, her black coat torn, but her eyes were steady. "They're not here for just him," she said. Victoria stared at her, heart racing. "What do you mean?" Raven's expression was solemn. "They're here for you too." Victoria's stomach dropped. "Why me?" Raven knelt beside her. "Because Caleb didn't just choose you for your genetics. He chose you for something else. Something buried. Something you don't remember." She looked down at the glowing child in Victoria's arms. He was activated too early. His mind is reaching out, trying to connect. And right now, you're the only one who can feel it. Victoria trembled. Raven added, "That glow in your eyes? That's not random. It means he's linked to you. He's showing you things." "I saw a lab," Victoria whispered. "And Caleb. And I think I saw myself. But I wasn't pregnant." Raven nodded. "You were there before this. Before all of this started. You don't remember because they wiped it. But your body does. Your brain does. And so does he." She pointed to the boy. "He's waking you up." Victoria could barely speak. Ethan crashed through the trees behind them, blood on his shirt, limping but alive. He took one look at her and the child, at the dim glow in both of their eyes, and froze. What's happening to you?" Victoria looked up at him, and then at Raven. Then she looked down at the boy, her son. And softly, for the first time, she whispered his name. "Lucian." The boy opened his eyes again. They lit up the forest, and every soldier nearby dropped to their knees, clutching their heads in pain, screaming. Ethan shielded his eyes. Victoria didn't move. She just held him, held Lucian. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt it. Not fear, not panic, but power, raw and ancient and pure. And she wasn't afraid of it anymore. The forest was no longer silent. Soldiers in black lay groaning on the ground. Some had dropped their weapons. Others were still conscious but dazed, disoriented, like their minds had been scrambled. Ethan stared at the scene in shock. What did he do? Raven didn't answer. She was watching Lucian. Victoria knelt in the dirt, holding both of her sons. Noah whimpered softly, unaffected by the wave of energy that had just passed over them. But Lucian, he was calm, almost serene. His eyes still glowed faintly, but they were fading back to normal. He turned his tiny head and looked up at Victoria. And in that instant, she understood. He hadn't lashed out. He hadn't attacked. He had protected her, protected them all. Raven finally spoke, her voice steady and low. His mind is learning faster than anyone imagined. He doesn't need weapons. He is one. Ethan stepped closer, eyes never leaving Lucian's face. "We can't keep this hidden forever." "No," Raven said. "But for now, the world isn't ready for him. And he's not ready for the world." Victoria stood slowly. "What are they going to do? Come after us again?" Raven nodded. "Yes. The Vanguard children are looking for him. But not all of them want war. Some of them want to understand. Others want to destroy. But Lucian is something different. He's not just advanced. He's something new." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we need to make sure no one gets to him." Raven looked between them. "I can help. There's a place I can take you. Safe. Remote. Protected. You'll have time. Time to help him grow. Time for him to learn what he is and what he isn't." Victoria's voice broke. "He's still a child. He deserves to be one." Raven nodded. "Then let's give him that, before the world tries to use him like a weapon." 3 weeks later, the world had moved on. The beacon tower explosion was written off as a gas leak. No reports of glowing eyes or rogue soldiers made it to the press. But in the shadows, something stirred. The Vanguard children were waking, watching, waiting, and in a hidden mountain retreat deep in the Rockies, Victoria, Ethan, and their sons lived quietly. Noah laughed now. He learned how to sit up and loved to pull at Ethan's watch. Lucian was different. Quiet, watching, absorbing everything. He never cried. But sometimes late at night, when the house was still and the snow fell quietly outside, Victoria would wake up to find Lucian staring at her. Not in fear, not in confusion, but in recognition. As if he remembered things even she didn't. One morning, she awoke to find drawings on the wall. Crude lines, made with a crayon. A circle, an omega symbol. A tower with eyes. A woman with wings. Raven. Lucian toddled into the room behind her, clutching another crayon. He pointed to the final drawing, two figures holding hands. One tall, one small, both with glowing eyes. Victoria looked down at him, heart full. "You see us," she whispered. He smiled, not like a baby, like someone who understood more than he should. Months passed. The retreat grew quieter, more secure. Raven visited often, taught Victoria how to see, really see, the parts of herself she'd buried. She had abilities too, nothing explosive like Lucian's, but real. Empathic intuition, memory recall, the same traits Caleb had hinted at. Abilities she now realized had always been there, dormant, waiting for Lucian to wake them. One night, under a sky full of stars, she and Ethan sat on the balcony, watching the boys sleep through the window. "You ever think this is bigger than us?" she asked. Ethan chuckled. "Everything is bigger than us." He paused. "But I do know one thing." "What?" He reached over and took her hand. That night in the hospital, when I saw his face and realized the baby wasn't mine the way I thought, I was angry, confused. But now, he looked at her. Now I realize it was the best thing that ever happened to me. She looked at him, tears brimming again. They brought us together, in the strangest, most impossible way. "And they'll keep us together," he said, "no matter what's coming." She nodded, heart swelling. In the distance, Lucian stirred in his crib. His eyes flickered once, and for a moment, the room around him changed. Just slightly. The mobile above his head froze mid-spin. The lights dimmed, but then it all returned to normal. Victoria and Ethan hadn't seen it, but Raven, watching silently from the hallway, had. She smiled softly. "Sleep well, little one," she whispered. "You're going to change the world, and maybe, just maybe, save it."